Christianity and Latin literacy was introduced to Ireland during the 5th century during the collapse of Roman Britain. Raiding parties pillaged coastal settlements and took people back to Ireland to sell into slavery. Among these people was Patrick, a 16-year-old who would later become known as St. Patrick. He was captured in a raid but escaped slavery 6 years later. After this, he traveled to Gaul, France, where he trained as a Christian priest. Later, he began to receive prophetic dreams that called him to Ireland, and he was told to walk among us by the Irish people. He traveled to Ireland as a missionary and set up churches in the hope of Christianizing the native Celtic pagan festivals. Surprisingly, he did gain converts, and over the course of the 5th century, hundreds of churches had been set up by Patrick and other missionaries. By the 6th century, the church had matured and many monasteries had been set up across the country. My question was, what was the influence of Christianity on early Irish culture? Christianity dramatically changed the Irish culture by combining the aspects of both the native Celtic culture and Roman culture. Initially, there was a conflict between the Roman Church and the Celtic Church. In 664, it was decided that Britain would follow the Roman practices. However, the Irish people resisted this, and Romanism did not greatly affect Ireland. As the bishops drew up the church laws in the 5th and 6th centuries, they forbid their converts from taking their disputes to secular courts. These acts were repealed by the 8th century once the tensions between the cultures had subsided. In early Ireland, education was divided into two types of schools, the schools of the church and the schools of lawyers and poets. The education provided in the different types of schools was completely different in subject matter as well as approach. The schools of the church originated from the mainland, so the curriculum was more traditional. The students learned Latin and studied the scriptures to become scholars of the church. Contrarily, the specialty schools of lawyers and poets were completely separate from the church and had been a part of Irish culture for many years before. The students of these schools knew the Irish law and could recite genealogies. However, reading and writing were not a part of the curriculum, and memory was the base of their education. The Book of Kells is an illuminated copy of the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, along with illustrations of Christ, the Virgin, and the evangelists. The book was written in Latin and was first recorded at the monastery in Kells after its theft and loss of its covers. However, it is generally believed that the work on the book began at Iona during the 8th century and then continued at Kells in the 9th century. The book was most likely used as an altar book because of its unusually large sign and unrestrained decoration, both very uncommon for the time period. Therefore, it was most likely used for liturgical reading and ceremonial pomp. It contains many full-page illustrations, making it distinct from similar insular texts and manuscripts of the time. The Book of Kells contains one of the most significant and most enigmatic depictions of the Madonna and Child. Here it is. It is the earliest existing Madonna and Child illustration in a Latin codex, and the most remarkable is the manner in which the figures are positioned, which is completely different than anything depicted in pictures from before. This information leads one to conclude that the Book of Kells was an important document in early Irish history and highly regarded in the Celtic Christian world. The book now resides at Trinity College in Dublin, where it was moved in 1654 from production from the Cromwellian iconoclasm. In conclusion, one can tell that the traditional Irish history was combined with the influences from the Roman Church, and Christianity became a very big part of Irish history. I don't have a conclusion.